Video, folks, the last video of the night. Trump is from 9 days ago. Trump signed an executive order to put the homeless people in jail, and so-called people are doing crimes, I guess, according to him, on the street. Protect the streets, according to him. I guess the homeless people are a threat. It's not about caring for the homeless people. Just getting them off the street, just locking them away. Just like up here, Toronto, they're doing, Mr. Ford is doing something like this, but not as drastic as Mr. Trump. Like Ford's doing it if they do drugs on the streets. They can't do drugs on the street, but Mr. Trump is just taking them off the streets. And if they're doing crime, I guess some people, they just don't take up, if they're bad guys, okay, he takes up bad guys off, he's gonna take them off the streets. I guess people who are homeless and they're doing bad things, that's like a minority. Okay, he takes them off the street, he could say, okay, they're doing crime. Actually criminals, yeah. But this is not about that. Just like his immigration deportation was about criminals. This is more like, be like that. It's gonna be like taking people off that are okay, they're sick, they have alcohol abuse or whatever, and put them in not to put them in proper institutions, but in probably jail, detention centers, not really getting help for them. But she'll explain this, Brittany Page.
Even how to start this video, because all I could really think to say was, these evil mother. My name is Brittany Page. This is the Page Perspective. Donald Trump signed an executive order yesterday, and through this one simple action, he's going to kill people, devastate communities, and make our homelessness crisis much, much worse. I read this executive order in disbelief, not that this administration...
Ending crime and disorder on American streets. See, that's all it is. July 24th. See, and it's all about crime and disorder. It's wicked. This guy's evil, folks. I mean, punching down on people with no power. It's a sin. This country's a sin. Well, that country's a sin. The U.S.
would do this. Of course, we expect this administration to be callous against evidence-based solutions and eager to criminalize people living in poverty and lock them away. But I continue to be amazed at how far we have fallen and how fast. We're going to go through what you need to know about this, and I'm going to link to all of my sources in the description as always. And I genuinely wish that more people were talking about this, so please share this video with your communities. The executive order, quote...
See, it was a big thing, but there's some news on it back then, 10 days ago. Now you hear nothing about this. Not a peep. People probably forgot all this by now.
Quote, ending crime and disorder on America's streets, builds off of the 2024 SCOTUS decision in Grants Pass v. Johnson that gave the green light to cities eager to punish the homeless for sleeping outside, even when they have nowhere to go. It opened the door for cities to criminalize people living in poverty, to arrest and ticket them for sleeping outside. And according to the ACLU, since that decision, 320 bills have been introduced across the country to criminalize homelessness, and 220 of those bills passed. And a lot of this is built on...
See that, folks? It's amazing. The stupid Supreme Court, that's what gave him open up the door for Mr. Trump.
long-term conservative activism behind the scenes.
Do you have $100? Because I'm looking for 2,000 believers who are willing to trade one.
Working to criminalize homelessness, specifically from a conservative group called the Cicero Institute. And through this continued work behind the scenes, we get this.
Screw it, I want to go back.
Built on long-term conservative activism behind the scenes, working to criminalize homelessness, specifically from
amid record homelessness, a Texas think tank tries to upend how states tackle it. Wow.
Conservative group called the Cicero Institute. And through this continued work behind the scenes, we get this executive order where Donald Trump writes in section 1, quote, endemic vagrancy, disorderly behavior, sudden confrontations, and violent attacks have made our cities unsafe.
Yes. Endemic vagrancy, disorderly behavior, period, sudden confrontations, and violent attacks. What violent attacks? I guess he's talking California, LA. I guess TYT, or even some leftists, or the mostly right wing, say that. But there's some just anecdotal evidence. I mean, it's not what you think. There's no violent attacks. There's violence, but here and there. Really, what he says there, United States on a single night, previous estimation. This is blight. Look at this, 274,000 was the highest ever recorded number of individuals living in the streets in the United States on a single night during the last year of the previous administration. 274,000 was the highest ever recorded. Is that true? You believe these guys?
The number of individuals living on the streets in the United States on a single night during the last year of the previous administration, 274,224.
I don't believe your stats. Go away. Bloody lie. These guys make up a lot of shit. You believe Trump administration? It's always Biden. It's all, see, this is all politics. And make up stats. This is really true.
Was the highest ever recorded. And I want to pause here to note that it's interesting that the Trump administration is choosing to focus on the count specifically for individuals who were living unsheltered during the point in time count last year, meaning literally on the street, outside, rather than the total number of unhoused, which of course was nearly 800,000 people, a number that is certainly an undercount, by the way, given the exclusion of people who are living in their cars or living in predatory extended stay motels or couch surfing with friends and family. But they don't want to talk about that. No, they don't want to talk about how their policy choices are making life more unaffordable and pushing people closer and closer to the brink of homelessness, or actually shoving them over the edge into homelessness. What do they want to talk about? Well, I'm sure you can guess what's coming next. Quote, the overwhelming majority of these individuals are addicted to drugs, have mental health conditions, or both. Nearly 2/3 of homeless individuals report having regularly used hard drugs like methamphetamines, cocaine, or opioids in their lifetimes. An equally large share of homeless individuals reported suffering from mental health conditions. The federal government and the states have spent tens of billions of dollars on failed programs that address homelessness, but not its root causes, leaving other citizens vulnerable to public safety threats. Right. You know it's always going to come back to some just world hypothesis nonsense where the people in power try to convince us that the people who are languishing in poverty deserve it because they made poor choices. They chose to use drugs, you see. They don't want to talk about housing affordability. They don't want to talk about the 53% of people working while living in homeless shelters or the 40% of unsheltered people.
And how about the drug problem? Specifically the opioid problem. Why not address that? I mean, why not clean up that problem? I mean, have to worry about opioids and drugs instead of just locking people up, which is what's going to happen.
Working while living on the street. So let's talk about the facts here. Let's turn to the data. Let's look at the research from the largest representative study of homeless people in decades from UC San Francisco. The director of the UCSF Benioff Homelessness and Housing Initiative and senior author of this research, Margot Kushel, says that most people who are homeless are not using drugs regularly. And you'll see here, less than half of people experiencing homelessness regularly used illicit drugs in the prior 6 months. Only around 37% reported regular drug use in the prior 6 months, and 25%.
See that, folks? Only 37% reported regular drug use in the prior 6 months, and 25% had never used a drug at any point in their lifetime. See, folks?
5% had never used drugs at any point in their lifetime. But the two most important things to highlight about this research are, one, the authors noting that homelessness drives drug use because it's actually used as a coping strategy.
It makes sense.
And two, a significant percentage of people who do report using also report that they have been unable to access treatment. And me referencing these numbers is not me saying, you know, substance use and mental illness are not a problem within the homeless population. Of course, people who are living on the streets are struggling with these issues. Not everyone, but some of them, yes. Just like people who are housed. Because drug use and mental health conditions are not only struggles for the homeless. But what should we do to solve those problems? Invest in a police infrastructure that will throw them into cages? No. You just heard from that research that many people who struggle with substance use on the street are not able to access treatment. Now, I wonder why that might be. Could it be a policy choice? Could it be a funding issue? Could it be that, as we see in the Washington Post reporting, quote, the Trump administration has slashed more than $1 billion in COVID-era grants administered by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, and is proposing to slash hundreds of millions more in agency grants, an agency that is now in crisis because
Some small has fought drug and mental health crisis. Now it's in crisis.
because of these cuts. Medicaid is the single largest payer of behavioral health services, including substance use treatment in this country. I used to work in a mandated treatment program in a treatment court where Medicaid funding was central to the work that we did. I'm still close to people who are clinicians, and I can tell you that after Donald Trump signed his tax and spending bill on July 4th, clients are now asking whether they will still have coverage, including for substance use treatment. If you actually wanted to help people who are struggling with substance use on the streets, you would fund treatment, not prisons. But no, this administration is so committed to cutting billions from Medicaid that they don't care about the impact. And briefly on that note, one study recently found that Donald Trump's Medicaid cuts could result in more than 1,000 additional deaths each year, as well as 100,000 more hospitalizations every year, with nearly 2 million people opting to delay seeking medical care because they can't afford it or they can't access it. And this would include people who cannot get treatment for mental health conditions and for substance use. So let's hop back over to this executive order briefly before talking about the main problem here, the lack of funding or even discussion regarding affordable housing in this country, which is driving our homelessness crisis. Quote, shifting homeless individuals into long-term institutional settings for humane treatment through the appropriate use of civil commitment will restore public order. Surrendering our cities and citizens to disorder and fear is neither
long-term care, really. So that's gonna be, they're gonna build, have more facilities, because they're also even though like retirees there, long-term facilities, people have disability, and you have like pensioners there. There's gonna be, and you're gonna have homeless people with them. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, folks.
Neither compassionate to the homeless nor other citizens. My administration will take an approach focused on protecting public safety. The assumption that everyone experiencing homelessness meets criteria for involuntary commitment is disgusting and terrifying. That this administration is eager to violate human rights is certainly not a surprise. Of course, there are people who need a higher level of care, who need long-term institutionalization, but this is not an administration eager to parse through who needs that and who doesn't.
No.
This is about rounding up people who live in poverty, period. And using words like compassion when talking about this plan is
I don't like it. Oh, there's certain leftists, believe it or not, certain leftists, so-called leftist channels, influence, believe in this. They know who they are.
particularly nauseating because, again, this is all a choice. And it is most certainly not a compassionate one. Do you know how much money was budgeted for new affordable housing in 2023? $12.8 billion. Do you know what was just budgeted for building detention centers for immigrants rounded up by ICE without due process? $45 billion. If this administration cared about the homelessness crisis, cared about solving it, do you think they would choose to spend 4 times the cash on detention centers than what they budgeted for housing? Policy choices. And just a brief shout out to author Brian Goldstone, who I interviewed a couple months ago, for bringing these numbers to my attention through a post on Blue Sky. Now, I know we've gone through a lot already, but I want you to be fully in the know here. I want you to be armed with facts that you can take out with you into your communities. And I want to briefly read this from the American Immigration Council. So you have some more numbers here, okay? Trump's budget bill, quote, provides $170.7 billion in additional funding for immigration and border enforcement related activities to the Department of Homeland Security and its sub-agencies, Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection, as well as for the Department of Defense, for its activities related to military's presence along parts of the southern border. The budget bill implicitly drives dramatic changes to immigration policy through the spending of federal tax dollars, because these funds are provided through reconciliation and not the regular appropriations process. They do not include directives about how the funds must be used, which prevents members of Congress from conducting meaningful oversight. Importantly, these funds all need to be spent by September 30th, 2029, but the agencies receiving them have significant discretion as to how to allocate them across the next 51 months. $170 billion. Because a large majority of this country can't tackle their racist beliefs, we are now stuck in a situation where many billions of dollars are being sent to terrorize people who aren't white, with 72% of people detained by ICE having no criminal record at all, according to government data.
So I want to go back to, so you're talking about immigration, that's another thing. Let's see if they do anything more on the homeless. Let's see.
By law, that detainees with serious mental illnesses are not released into the public because of a lack of forensic bed capacity at appropriate local, state, and federal jails or hospitals. What in the hell does this mean? Warehousing people? Using those billions of dollars in the new detention facilities to disappear people living in poverty? We're already seeing reckless...
See, what she's saying that they're going to do is, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they said homeless people that are immigrant. That's what they're saying. But then you're gonna eventually round up regular people, American citizens, and they're gonna end up in detention centers. That's what she's saying. So I see now that ties in together. That's what's gonna happen. Supposedly they have homeless immigrants, and they're gonna deport them, put them in detention centers. But eventually you're gonna get homeless Americans, the American citizen. They're gonna run, and yeah, they're not gonna return them either. We're not gonna know. Who cares? Nobody's gonna. I say who cares, but man, we don't care enough. So no one's gonna know. I mean, unless a concerned family member. So you're not gonna know. These people are gonna disappear. As she says. Wow. God knows what they're gonna do to them.
Human rights violations of due process for undocumented people, as well as those with citizenship. So how are we supposed to believe this administration will follow any sort of principles related to preventing human rights violations when it comes to this plan for the unhoused? I can't even describe the level of rage that I feel. I may, at this point in this video, have a rage rash on my neck. I don't know. I hope I do, because I want people to see the rage here, because I hope you feel it too. I hope you know that you're not alone. Under the guise of public safety, this administration is prepared to amp up their assaults on human and civil rights. And so this is what they want. They want to push more people into poverty. They want to push people living in poverty out of sight in the form of involuntary commitment for poverty, or by tossing them away in a cage. And they want the rest of us to accept it. I don't. I reject the propaganda that tells me that there's something unique and special about me that allows me to live in a house and not on the street. I'm lucky. I'm no different than anyone who's living on the street, and I know that I'm not immune from ending up there myself should enough tragedy happen in my life. And what would I want for myself then? What would I want for someone that I love? What have I wanted for my clients? What do I want for the people I work with now? What would I want for you? What would I want for anyone? To have help, to be met.
She said clients. I guess she's a lawyer. Yeah, you know that.
With understanding, to be supported, to live in a society that does not strip billions from healthcare, food assistance, funding for affordable housing and mental health treatment and addiction treatment in order to explode our police state and criminalize poverty, and instead makes policy choices that improve all of our lives, because this does not make us safer. The safest communities are those with the most resources, where the citizenry have their needs met. So please reject this attempt to otherize those in poverty.
Anyways, folks, I'm gonna end it there. Well, there you go, folks. This is about a couple 10 days ago, but they already forgotten about this. The media, they're not talking about this. So he's gonna put the homeless people in institutions, lock them away, probably detention centers. Although some of them is gonna go in the hospitals, like long-term care, doing disabled, but they won't have enough beds for that. There's gonna be a lot of, you have to build a lot of hospitals like that. But and then they talk about immigrants too that are homeless. I think she's right. They're gonna put them in detention centers, most likely, as that's what's gonna happen. And some may disappear. I mean, especially if they get mixed up with immigrants and citizens, you're gonna have people in they're gonna have end up deporting homeless U.S. citizen, the American citizen. Anyways, folks, what do you think about this? This is crazy, but this thing is happening not just America, all over. I mean, the Western, not all over, mostly in the Western countries. This is happening. Yeah. Anyways, folks, I'm out. What do you think about this? Like and subscribe if you want. I'm out.